guys good?
Yeah, sorry.
I'd like to call to order Town Council meeting of February 15th, 2024. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilor Greathouse?
Yeah.
Councilor Steer?
Here.
Councilor Burlingame? Councilor Arnold?
Here.
Councilor Worthy?
Here. Join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming for this session. This is police station replacement and/or renovation update, discussion, and interaction. Just want to let everybody know that we're going to be finding out a lot of the same information at the same time. So this is going to almost be like a workshop. We're gonna listen to everybody that has come and provided us all the information together. We'll hold off some questions until after we hear from all of the different heads or have questions from us plus our head departments, and then we'll open up to open. So if you have questions, just save them to the end. I'll let you know when we're going to have open. That way you can directly ask us questions that you might have. All right. At this time, welcome.
Thank you. How are we doing tonight? Mark Secosio Associates Architects. So we were here in December, I guess it was, yeah. And I presented, which I'm going to recap as well, presented the addition renovation concept for the police station. And as a result of that meeting, you all asked what it would be if we looked at a new construction at a new site. So a site was identified, and I've done a conceptual. We're still early, just to, today is sort of, want to frame, I think, the discussion about does it make more sense to move the station, and yes, there is some additional money that needs to be expended. I think that's the real question tonight, as to what does that extra expenditure make sense for a longer range plan for the station. So, as I said, I'll recap what we went over last time.
Can everybody see clear?
So this is the existing station as is, right there in the middle. The current renovation plan was to add on, you can see in the blue, it's about a 9,200 square foot addition and a redo of the garage in the back, and also acquiring the land to the northeast, I guess it is, or east of the site, and expanding the parking lot. So the plan here was to develop the site, maximize use of the site, and still accomplish what the station needs. That's of the existing. So this is the existing 4,800 square feet. Basically, there's a lot of stuff put into a very small space.
Excuse me, how many square feet did you just say?
This is 4,800 square feet. The new combined station, we realigned everything, reworked a lot of the internal of the white area, and the shaded area is all new construction of all of the associated elements that are needed that were missing from the plan. So then from that, we had a discussion, we went over budgets and the like, and what would a new construction, what would a station look like, and what were the efficiencies if we did build it all new as opposed to renovating and adding on to the existing building. So the site's on 44, it's the full site. We're taking the front portion of the site and we're proposing a 13,000 square foot building, which is 1,000 square feet smaller than the addition renovation, and that is basically efficiencies and better utilization, which I'll show sort of a graphic on how that works. This is a close-up of just really what we call this is a test fit. Does it fit on the site? The access is the primary and only access at this point is from 44. The first chunk is public parking, everything from the parking back, and you probably can't hear me, but it's not, from here back is what we call secure parking for police vehicles only. There'd be a gate there, and everything would be secure from the back, entrance in the front. Overall floor plan, I think it's easy to see it in the colored version. Colors aren't coming out as well as I'd like, for whatever reason on the TV. But what's most important, I'll step away from the mic, hopefully everybody can hear me, is the public, private, so there's really three zones that we talk about in public safety zones. It's really the general public area, secure police, and then semi-public. So what you see here, if you can see that sort of green color, that's all public space. It's your lobby, there's a lavatory, there's what we call a soft interview room. So if somebody comes in that was been in distress, concern, generally we'll take them into the interview room, assess the situation, and then make a determination as to what's the best and most sensible thing we could do after that. It's intended to be, you know, low and less, threatening, thank you. The EOC/meeting room, a large meeting space with an additional vestibule on the outside, so it has full public access, and we're able to lock that area off, so everything in green could be used for a meeting like this, or any community meeting, or anything of those sorts. The pinkish color, I guess you call it, is the semi-secure, meaning that there's interaction with the public often. Dispatch, obviously dispatch is your front door. It is what the person that meets and greets the person that comes in to the lobby space, assesses the situation, and is your first point of contact. They have to also be self-contained. All of this is true of both plans, by the way. This, just to be real clear, that the old plan that we already reviewed, everything is addressed in that plan I'm talking about here, just addressed differently. I'll show you that in a bit. So it's a fully self-contained box there, dispatch, lavatory, break area. It's obviously, as you would expect, it's a 24/7 position, and the person that's in dispatch can't leave dispatch. Obviously, at off time, when general operation of the station. Records area, so you're going in for your traffic reports and all anything associated with what you need. This is all semi-public interaction. The command area, the chief, the offices that are associated with that, some janitor, and then everything from this corridor up is all what we call secure. So the general public is not invited in that area. If you're there, you probably don't want to be there. Simple as that. So it is then secure and intended, very intentionally meant to be a space that's controlled. And we have some man traps that are associated with being able to move people through. Starting, I'm going to actually start, if you were actually coming in after you might have had a run-in, coming into Sallyport, which is this middle space right here, if you can see it. There's a room here we call processing. That's where the person would come in, if it need be, fingerprinting, or run into an interview room, which is here as well. From that interview room, then that's assessed as to whether there's charges, press, and then back into the processing, and then fingerprinting the like, all in a very controlled environment. From that space, you can then, if need be, go into the cell blocks as needed. So very secure part of the building. Over to the left, where we say BCI lab evidence, all secure. There's obviously a bunch of CLEAR is your accreditation organization, and there's a state organization. It's very particular on what we call chain of custody. So the officer has gained something from a person, it has to be brought in, has to be signed in, and it has to have the chain of custody as how that piece of evidence is treated. So it's very secure, so nobody can tamper with evidence. Very important piece, so that's all together. Small IT area, some mechanical space. Then you get that sort of processing evidence and potential prisoners, I'll say, trying to be nice.
It is what it is.
I'm going to put a softer word, but I didn't have it.
Prisoner processing, that's what it is.
From here over is basically more day-to-day operational, police operations. The patrol area is where the day-to-day patrol officers would be sitting, writing reports and the like. Easy access to the exterior. The sergeants and detective officers, very common, working group. It's also where you do roll call and all the things that are associated with that. Storage, gun shop, armory, and locker room. So this is part of the secure area because it is strictly used by police, in other words, nobody's coming in from the public. So the building is, again, still conceptual in terms of how it's laid out. It's not intended to, if we did go ahead, we'd probably need some changes, but it's a pretty strong layout. We did get some efficiencies in terms of being able to maintain clean corridors, better organization of the space. So if compared to this diagram, which really all I want you to look at is the green, which is here and there, the semi-secure, secure. What you get from this diagram is the lack of organization of all of the secure and non-secure public spaces. I know it's a little confusing, and I will say, and I've said this before, this still works. It's just less than ideal. So I said last time that this plan still works. We're not saying that if you did this, you're in trouble. That's not the decision here tonight. This still works. There's the compromises that you're making here are known. They're not deal breakers in a sense. So I don't want anybody to say, this looks discombobulated in a sense, but as I said, the colors aren't coming through quite as strong as I like. Side by side, you can sort of see the difference of these are relative. Side by side, you can sort of see the difference of these are relative scales, so they're not proportionate. It's not the same size building. This is actually a smaller building, it's just blown up a little bit more. But the advantage here is you really have public, semi-public, private spaces really well delineated, and everything is a little more functional in a sense, and it's less square footage. We're in the renovation, we are making some compromises in terms of sizing, arrangement of spaces, and the like. Again, it's not an either or. That's really not the decision. Both stations work. They work. This works better, but it's also at a premium. So that's really the decision is more about, I think, more about the long-term piece of where you want to go from here. So money. I know there's always discussion, and I wish I could sit here and tell you that we had a crystal ball on how much this is going to cost. But I know that every time we put a new number together, it seems to go up. Well, my job is to try to be as realistic as possible. And given what we know, I brought some examples here, just some older and some recent. So Cumberland Police, which was bid in 2019, was about $600 a square foot. The Glocester Police, which was just recently bid, bids came in between 7 and 10 million, and it's 6,000 square feet. If you do the math, it's about $1,200 a square foot. Cumberland Community Center, which is a project that we just bid in December as well, 5,600 square feet. And these are wood frame buildings. They're not, we're sort of similar in the sense of, was 1,200 square feet. But the caveat there was a lot of site work. You take the site work out, which I can't, it's my project. I know it. It's what I mean, I just can't arbitrarily take it out. It was about $892 a square foot for the building itself. We have two estimators that I asked for estimates on the building alone, not the site, because we applied some money to the site. It's too early to really budget the site, and the site numbers were similar across the board. One estimator said 750, one estimator said 725. As again, tonight is really not getting hung up on the specific number. It's sort of the next slide. So this is a composite of the costs from the two columns. This column is new construction and renovation. You go down the columns, it talks about the square footage, the cost of the renovation, the garage, contingencies, and everything. I can go through design, furniture, keeping everything pretty much the fixed cost is the same, meaning the furniture is the same, the communications is the same. some of the allowances are percentage-wise. When you do the total, with the escalation at 5% a year, assuming construction start in 25, 26, it's 17.3 million basically versus 15 million. So it's a $2.3 million delta between the new and the old. And that's holding everything pretty consistent.
17.3, and what's the other one?
17.3, I'll give you the presentation as well. 17.3 and then 15, could call it 15,046,570 to be exact. So as opposed to 17, so it's about it's a $2.3 million delta. And the significant difference in the delta, obviously building most new square footage, that's the issue. If I bring this down and I did this, if you take, and just pick a number, even if you pick 550 a square foot, your delta is basically the same. It comes down slightly, it's still not quite 2.5 anymore, it becomes more like 2 million. But there is a significant delta either way, because you're building more square footage, there's more site development costs, although I hold them consistent here. And the market's gonna drive that, so to me, the decision that I think needs to be put before everyone is that what are the advantages and disadvantages of the existing site and building there versus what are the advantages and disadvantages of building at the new site, and is that worth $2.5 million difference? And then you can start talking about, well, let's not do this or do that, and it's more important to move. Can we do things? Can we save? There's always ways to save. I will say that if you look at a national standard, where you're at with basically it's 11,000 population is
About 10.5.
11,000. Generally speaking, and I don't know why this works, but every child they do, we've done a lot of police stations. It's about a square foot per person. If you take the EOC out of this mix, you're right around that 11,000 square feet. You're at 14,000. So you're right in the number. We're not building, what I'm trying to say is you're not overbuilding the station. It's right-sized. I mean, the chief and his staff have been clear. They want something that works well, but we don't want anything that isn't needed. So there's not a lot of like, okay, these are nice to haves versus have to haves. So where I stand.
All right, now, you said, the pros and cons of each location. Are you prepared to give us some of those today, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the two sites, I didn't put them side by side, I probably should have as I'm having this conversation. So it's clear that if you move to the existing site, or you stay on the existing site, that you're locked in. There is no room for expansion.
Ever again.
Ever again. You've basically, and again, that could last you for 20, 30 years, 50 years, who knows? I can't predict that. But you definitely, I said this last time, I'll say it again tonight, I would never sit here and say that if you did the renovation addition, that it isn't gonna work, and it definitely will work for a good amount of years. If in 30, 40 years from now, whatever that number is, they say, well, population has grown, or policing is a different way than it is today that we can't envision, and we need additions or additional parking or whatever that added is, you've pretty much locked yourself in. I mean, we had to buy property to get even this addition in as the way, where you've got a pristine piece of property on 44. It's huge. We clearly would not take the whole thing. It would obviously be available for other city town work. So what gives you the advantage there is you have plenty of room for expansion. You have some breathing room. It's going to last you for the foreseeable future in that space. So that's the pros and cons. And there's better utilization of the building. There's a little less crossover of the public-private that we talked about. So it's a little easier handling prisoners. It's a little easier handling the general public as well, as because you come in the front door. So there's, again, I keep saying it because I don't want anybody to think this is we're putting ahead that, this one just doesn't work, like the ugly duckling versus the brand new thing. This is not the case. It's really the forward. thinking that you might wanna do as to the pro and con. It's as simple as that. It really is, it's breathing room versus no breathing room. And and it really is almost as simple as that. I hate to say it that way because there's no real magic to this in that sense. It's, but you know, for the major investment, if there is something that's needed long-term, you know, there's less options. Simple, it's as simple as that, you know. There's nothing in your current demographics that says that things are gonna drastically change over the years, but certainly policing has changed. The chief can certainly speak to that. Even though your population hasn't increased a lot, you've got more officers, you have a little more crime, a little more, everything's a little more. So you may not have 20,000 people, I'm exaggerating obviously, in 30 years from now, but you still may need, who knows what you're gonna need. It's just hard to predict.
Sure. Any questions from any of the counselors?
Not right now.
Okay. Chief, do you wanna get up and?
You have any questions for me, or how do you want me to go? Start from the beginning?
I guess, you know, with the conversation that we just had in regards, we understand that both things work, right? Do you foresee anything in the future that could possibly, you know, we have to just figure out if the delta, you know, if money's gonna be cheaper now than it's gonna be in 30 years, and the benefit of, you know, future families of Gloucester paying less in the future as opposed to now, what are your thoughts on that?
That's a tough question. The addition meets our needs, and when I had, first of all, Mark, I'm impressed of your police operations, of how you did that. You did a good job. I'm very surprised, as long as it's not personal, like you didn't have any personal contact in the subway. You did a good job. It's, the addition meets our needs, and when we did a needs assessment, and a lot of this is going back 6 years. You know, sinkholes, the garage has black mold, water, no place for evidence. We had to put a Connie box out there for evidence. Records were all over the place. We have 30,000 records we have to manage. And that's, normally that's in the police station, not locked up in another location. The locker rooms. The locker rooms can't handle 10 police officers. There's only one bathroom on that whole side of the building. So as we went forward, we were thinking we want to open up the locker rooms, prepare for female locker rooms, and diversifying down the road. And then for the evidence, and then all of a sudden we merged with the EOC. Now EOC is an important part of what we do, and especially over COVID, what we saw during 2019-20, that was an important part. They were in sync, police and EOC. We did everything together, the points of distribution, everything that worked out on the shots, and that was a great example of what emergency operations does.
So if everybody got that, the EOC is the emergency operations that Jerry Mosca did here for us to give out shots and COVID
right,
stuff.
and that's in 2020. So we were in sync with the EMA director, and also, so that, we have a lot of square footage dedicated to that EOC, Emergency Operations Center. So what does the EOC do? We stand it up during critical events and also in training events. We've had a couple where we stood up, and now no better example during the COVID time. We did that, and also we were regionalized too. We regionalized because of Jerry, that's just that. So with that being said, a lot of that square footage is EOC. A lot of that square footage is storage. A lot of that square footage is his office. The police side of the house, we meet our needs with records, locker rooms, diversification, female, and opening up the, we have no space for cars, no space for visitor parking. That opens everything up on both sides. So there is an upside. We meet our needs. He's done a very, on the new building, I asked him, we don't want Taj Mahal, we want efficiency. I don't think I can ask him anything. I think, I don't know what I can shrink in there. I don't know what I can shrink in the new building. I think I can shrink maybe the EOC in a couple spots in the addition because of the money issue. So right now, it's a jump ball. If that makes sense.
Yep,
I hope it's a tough, you asked a tough question.
So the money coming in right now to offset either the either or, right, because the money's good for
So
either
we
or.
have 2 grants in play right now.
Yep.
One that we've already been awarded, and it's a COPS grant, $490,000. So the COPS, and that's gonna be dedicated to our dispatch center. We need to open up dispatch. We only have 1 station there. During special events, we use 2 stations. We have 2 dispatch. During critical incidents, we use 2 stations. Nice to have an extra one there. We need to open up. We have a table with monitors. We have our clock system on there. We have other stuff on that table, unlike a regular outdoor, table in the dispatch center. We can't put any monitors up in dispatch, any more stuff. We're just maxed out. We have all the fire equipment in that same, that shouldn't be there. That should be mechanical around the corner in another room. That takes up space. So in the addition, that gets opened up, and a lot of that is funded, the equipment funding will come from that COPS grant
Mhm.
to do that. So that's a plus. That would also transfer over to a new station. Okay? Our hallmark is school security. We're very in tune to that. We've just brought in school monitors for the elementary schools, as surveillance. Okay, we have great camera systems, work in sync with the schools. We can't put anything else in. We can't get the high school stuff in because we don't have a fit for it. We don't have anything else. So when you think of growing, that's a growth for us. That's part of the public safety growth. Back to the second grant is $1 million FEMA grant, which is dedicated to the emergency operations in the EMA program here in Glocester. And that's where that would go. And that covers a lot of that, most of that square footage.
Okay,
So we're at 1.49.
Okay. And for anybody who's never been into the police department, we've had a chance to go in. They can't allow access, obviously, to everybody, but when you go in there's cabinets kind of all over the place. When you go into dispatch, it's like a wall of screens. And like you said, some of them are on tables. They're not even like on the walls for easy access to see what's happening. So it's kind of like CSI, if you watch that show. Like, I mean, it's pretty, but it's kind of like not set up correctly. So, okay.
That's one of the areas, that's an area we want to expand in, to make us better in the overall public safety scheme.
Yep.
And that works in both places. Marcus definitely, we showed that as an important need for the department, and he's shown that in both diagrams. When you go new, it's easy. It's an easy thing. And then you have the outside security, like he said. When you come in for a complaint and you have, hey, I got to come into the police station, we meet you outside in an interview room. That's not the way it is now. That's not a break at all, but it works in both locations as he described. So there's upside to both locations, and buying the land is key. And once we do that,
Okay.
we seal it.
All right. Any department heads want to get up and ask any questions? And
You want? Can the captain? Captain's been there 30 years, so he knows the ins and outs.
Getting back to the current building, getting back to the dispatch center alone, we have split units in the ceiling to try to cool dispatch, make it climate controlled. Dispatches are hot, they're cold, they get jackets on in the summer. The towers, the computers generate so much heat, so the heating unit, Matt Floor, the IT director, she has an office off of that. He's got a separate split unit. Some of the ceiling tiles are stained. We don't know if it's from the units. We don't know if it's from the roof that was repaired a few years back. So the quality of life when you're in the building is a little bit different. You go in the patrol room, you could be climate controlled in there, come out into dispatch to get your paperwork from the dispatchers. You're like, oh my God, it's freezing in here. Well, they got the AC on because the units that run the fire radios are generating so much heat off the back of the fans. So there's that issue. The server room, which is currently off of the juvenile holding cell, that's a whole other room. I think the chief talked about it before in the past. It's climate controlled by a unit in the wall that Highways had to replace a couple times for us because the tower that runs all the computers, the servers, heats up, and if that AC unit was to go down, then the server's going to go down. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. And in today's world, you can't get the stuff readily. COVID has pushed timelines back on computers and accessories and whatnot. So there's a lot with the current building that we're going to have to add to, correct?
Oh,
And
yeah.
change. So when you look up there, you see the server, you see the patrol room, you see, but it's going to be a little bit more. As far as talking about the mold in some of the buildings, we have a back garage now. We try to put, we have forfeiture or seized property. You put it in there, and the next thing you know, you can't keep it in there. If you do, it gets moldy, it gets smelly. Sometimes the property has to be returned later on. So you're concerned about the conditions of what you're keeping. Water issues on the property. I don't think we have much more to expand, but we do have a water issue that's going to have to be redirected. And then again, buying that property behind us during the climate change, things have changed. You see the rainstorms we get now. But not only that, the trailer park has changed a little bit. The roads, the way that the water flows. Our propane tank has been underground, has been frozen. We've run out of propane and had to have highway come over, and they have to defrost the valve before we can even have propane put in. So there are a lot of deficiencies, and a lot of that, to correct it, if we stay on the same site, is going to chew up some of those dollars. So, and anybody that wants to come over and give a tour, we'll be more than happy to do that. But if you talk to the people in the building, not to get into our daily activities, but when we arrest a juvenile, we bring somebody in from the school. If we do have to detain them, place them in the holding cell, that's separate from the adults. Currently, we have a clerk that's operating out of the holding cell room. So if you put somebody in that holding cell, clerk has to leave. Sight and sound separate from adults. So now you have her paperwork in there. You have a juvenile. We do our best to make sure everything's obscured, but we still have to monitor a juvenile. So we had lockup last weekend. Four arrests out of one address. One was a female, so we have the juvenile cell as a female. We have the 3 holding cells with males. So we had a full house with one call. Again, it's the quality of life we're in the building is a little bit different. The way that we're storing evidence, depending on what day you come in, depending on how much marijuana that's in evidence, it cycles through the ventilation because the way that the evidence rooms aren't proper with ventilation and whatnot. So you're constantly inhaling that. You come in, you open up the door, it kind of sucks that smell through the building. I think, Will, you've been in there yourself and you've said, wow, what's...
Yeah.
So there's a little bit more than, and again, I'm not trying to put down the property that's there because we can work with it.
Right.
But it's going to take not just a footprint, but it's going to be a lot more to correct some of those deficiencies, to make it efficient.
Right.
So.
Okay.
I just want to add a couple things. I brought this up, I had a great meeting with the budget board in January, and I can kind of give them the state, before I get into the budget, I give them a state of the personnel. We've increased personnel since I've been here. We're conceivably going to be at 18 when that new recruit comes out of the academy. Now the FBI says per 1,000 residents you should have 2 police officers. So that would make us around 21. I'm not saying I want to go there, but we're not equipped with the stuff to get to 18 and 19. We're so maxed and tight. We already increased our minimum manning during contracts this past year for our second shift, and that's a good minimum manning requirement, and I'm glad we did it because our business time is from 4 to 12, no question about it. We get sometimes days, but that's all our calls of service. This past year we're up 2,500 calls for service. So and I said this, well, what is a call for service? That's everything. We go to everything. Everything that happens in the police department, including EMS, but we go to everything, and it gets busy. We're up 50 arrests this year from last year, and I'm like, wow, what happened with the arrests? We had 12 DUIs in a 4-week period at the end of the holidays in '23. So our incidents are up 150 more than 100 to 150 more than they were last year. Our major crimes have doubled from last year. Now you say, well, what's a major crime? It's not like we're the murder capital of Rhode Island. That's definitely not. We're still a very safe community, but there are major crimes that happen: sexual assaults, some narcotics activity, capital crimes, burglaries, targeted burglaries in town from gang groups from out of Glocester. So there's things. The activity has gone up. So that also supports the fact of administratively and activity-wise that we're bulging at the seams as we grow. Over the last 6 years, as this developed, I pumped the brakes on all my capital projects. I go to the budget board and they'll say, hey, what are we going to start? Because I had intentions of repairing the parking lot, security fencing, doing the locker rooms over one way, little expansion. This is in the early stages. Now, just if everything stopped right now and they gave me, okay, I'm talking $3 million just to stay on our footprint right now, $2.5 to $3 million. Once I get through that parking lot, security, doing everything in the station. So we're all, I would ask for that next capital. I say, hey, if we pumped up rates right here at this time. So a lot of stuff needs to be done inside, and that's $2 million. Just as he does the addition, he comes inside to do that too, which is very doable in me. So there's a lot of stuff going on.
So I think that, obviously, we have a good crowd here tonight. I think public safety is something that we're all very happy to have here in Gloucester. I think you do a great job, and a lot of the guys do a great job. Obviously, it's a financial, right? It's a financial thing. And I guess this question would be to you, Mark. None of us are contractors up here, right? So, who's going to have the town's best interest? So, a clerk of the works, a construction manager, owner's rep. When do those guys start getting involved to have the residents in mind to try to either get this down a little bit? When does that get?
Depending on the delivery system, a job of this size, the absolute best price you're gonna get is what we call design, bid, build.
Mm-hmm.
So we prepare a set of documents, goes out to bid, everybody's bidding on the same set of documents, you're gonna get your most competitive price. I would say 85–90% of our jobs go that way.
Mm-hmm.
When you start to get, like we're doing the high schools in Warwick, for instance, we're doing that with a CM. So, $350 million project, so there's a whole lot of layers to those types of projects. And then complicated renovations, schools or public safety or the like. We're doing the public safety building in Pawtucket. We are doing it as a CM. That's a construction manager, sorry, I should say that. So the three options basically are construction manager, which then you could hire them at any point in the project. I'm not recommending that, but just to give you your options. And they can help develop the plans and budgets together. What's the advantage of that is that you're building it together, and at the end you know where you're at. There's a cost associated with that. Generally it's about a 5%-ish additional cost for the construction manager. They would argue less, but they're part of the team. So they come on, they're managing the construction, they're working with us with the design, with the town, and together we're coming up with the final budget. And then ultimately you're building it. Generally that's sort of the next level, $20, $30 million projects. It starts to make sense because of the extra money most of the time. And then there's a design build model. So when we did the North Smithfield Town Hall, not the police station, the Town Hall, we did it as a design build where we put a set of documents together that obviously a lot more detailed, and then you put it out and you hire a contractor, then they hire an architect, they're a team. Generally we would then stay on, which is what we did in North Smithfield. We stay on as as your owner's rep in that sense, and we're monitoring the work that's being done. You lose control in that model more so. The least control is that model in that way. So, but sort of decisions down the road, not something that you'd have to do now. During construction, some level of clerk, you certainly need somebody that's going to be at least half time dedicated to a project of this size. Something you'd want to certainly consider. Whether it's someone on the command staff that's going to be, when we did Smithfield, now Deputy Chief Eaton was the main, Dolan, sorry. It was Eaton. I started with Bobby Eaton at the time, and then Eric Dolan took that over. But he was, if you talk to him, he'll say, he was spending half, a good amount of his time on the project. And that was a renovation addition as well. So.
What, in your percentage, have you ever seen a job come in under budget?
All the time.
Okay.
Not lately.
Yeah, right.
Sorry.
No.
We, even since our last go around only in December, I had lower numbers.
I know.
So, and, you know, it's, the community center we just did in Cumberland, I couldn't, none of us could believe the numbers. We had 5 or 6 bidders. This is not like, we just bid the Block Island School last week. It was 50% over budget. The Block Island factor, even if you take that aside, we had 1 bidder. It's a $10 million project, 1 bidder. We just bid the Budlong Pool. We had 5 bidders. It's actually on budget or right around budget. It's slightly over, but manageable. It's the most frustrating thing right now in my world, that we just can't tell you what it's gonna cost. And that's why, you know, you try to back it up, you try to figure it out, and predicting the cost is, I think things are finally starting to slow down, especially in this size project. I think that you're starting to see, I'm getting more phone calls. As I said, the pool, we thought we'd get 3, we got 5 bidders. It was 4.7 to 5.7, it was a pretty big range, but you know, we had good coverage, which was nice, so that tends to, so I think this size project market, the real big jobs, there's a lot of real big school projects out right now, so the big CMs and the Gilbanes, the Dimios, those kinds of guys are pretty busy. But your mid-sized contractor, which would be perfectly suited for this job, there's capacity, and I think it'll get better. I'm hoping.
What does the 1.49 million take off the top, and then what does that break it down to square footage?
Say that again?
With the money coming in for the 2 grants?
Oh, you'd have to, it's 13,000, so you'd have to do the math, whoever has a calculator, so 1.5, call it, so it'd be, for the new construction, you'd be at basically 15, 8 or 9, divided by 14,000 square feet, or 13,000 square feet for the new, 13,000. So 14, 9, divided by 13,000. Did that in my head, it would be $632. No, I don't know.
Yeah, what was it, 14.9 divided by?
So it would be 14.9 divided by 13,000. Should be high sixes.
Well, that's at $114.
Go the opposite.
So you gotta divide. So it would be,
I'm coming up with 872.
well, that's because it's total project, yeah. That's the difference. So we're doing total project. So if you're gonna do it up top, which is before you add all the other soft costs and the like, so that's where the 750. So direct line, you'd be comparing it to the 12.1 minus, so it'd be 12 million minus 1,490,000. It's really dangerous doing this, divided by 13. So because it's a mold, you know what's throwing that off too is because of the garage in the back as well, because it's a different number, the square footage, so
Yeah,
you gotta take that off.
it's gonna break
It's
it down.
less.
It's less.
Let's just say it's less.
It's less.
This is really dangerous doing this on the run.
Yeah.
But
And
it
you
would
said
be
you're gonna
probably,
stay to that number
it's
now.
basically $700 a square foot is what it's gonna come out to,
Okay.
if you do the math.
Okay.
Yeah, but, 7, a little less than 7. But, I mean, you'd wanna do a mix of funding, obviously.
Yeah.
Sorry.
In the renovation proposal, does that number, and does that number not address
Yes, it does.
so it addresses all of the infrastructure issues, water, HVAC?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a complete renovation. That's the $450 a square foot takes in the 4,800 square feet of the existing building. There's really nowhere in the station. What I didn't, as a pro and a con, and anyone that's lived a renovation, whether it's in your own home or anywhere else. So it's a year of hell. So it's not pleasant for that year, pardon my French. It is disruptive, for sure. There are times where, and this is, we did, as he did it in Smithfield as well, there'll be times when they'll be reaching out to Smithfield and other towns for housing of prisoners and mutual aid kind of situations where there'll be times with parts of the station aren't accessible. Very similar to the Smithfield project. We would build a shell around the outside, leave everything pretty much functional inside. As I said, the access to the cell blocks, because we're surrounding the building, is going to be a little more difficult. Same problem we did in Smithfield. Basically, we had the front door, and that was pretty much it, because we surrounded the buildings. Kind of didn't realize there is a lot of similarities. But if you talk to Chief St. Severe, he'll tell you it was a difficult year. But it's at the end of the day, there's an end.
Another question for you, I can't see I know you're gonna send out this.
Yeah.
And I know we've talked about this in previous discussion, but does the number for the renovation in the existing area, does that include temporary setup, temporary whatever you gotta do for operations while you're in there working and living under the same roof, so to speak?
So there's $100,000 in there for that sort of thing on the renovation side. I put it on both sides to keep everything equal, so that disruptive piece, whether it's for the move or the like. So there is, whether you needed that or not, it really depends on how we work
Like
through
a
it.
trailer with
Correct.
electricity coming in temporary,
Yeah, we're doing stations out, fire stations in Plymouth, Mass, and we have a trailer. The town actually bought a surplus trailer, and we're moving it from station to station. We're doing four different fire stations out there, but they're all complicated renovations like this. They have no other sites. You have the benefit of a site. That's a privilege. It's not. And as you know, with fire location, it's more about location. The chief would tell you he can almost be anywhere in the town. It's because the officers are out patrolling. They're not. The only convenience to centrally located police is if it's really remote, it's just getting back to the station and back out on patrol. But it's not as important as response times where we would have to get to people, within a short period of time. Do you agree with that, Chief?
100%. Very good.
99?
99.
No.
I don't have anything else right now. I'm sure I'm gonna lay awake all night and come up with a million more questions, but I don't
Yeah,
have anything more right now.
I think when it was said in the beginning, I don't think anyone would expect you to just jump into a decision today. I think that this has to be contemplated and think about the pros and cons and, look at the financing piece. And at the end of the day, I don't think either one there's no right or wrong decision, which is one of those difficult things. I wish I could sit here and say you're making a huge mistake if you make the renovations. When you asked me in December to do this exercise, I think I said, or pretty closely said, that I think is going to be a big difference, and it's not as big as I anticipated. There was, as the chief kept saying, they're going to find some efficiency, and the efficiency helped. 1,000 square feet is at these numbers is a big number. So the efficiency does help.
Right, one of the things, also to bridge that gap is if we sell that property, find out the value, what the usage is of that property, that closes the gap even more. So the reason why we're bringing this to everybody is that it can be very close, and it's all of our decisions to figure out, if this is the best decision for the future of Gloucester, so.
It's an investment, you're making an investment, right? And you want the best return on the investment and the best long-term return on the investment. And, we all make these decisions. I've been to countless numbers of these types of meetings, and, there isn't I can't say here there's a I really recommend, this has gotta be the way to do it.
I think, you know, it's one thing, the delta, if it's small, if it remains small, that's one thing, and it's scary, like you said, you wake up a month from now, the numbers could be different. That's, you know, and I know there's no crystal ball, and I think I've asked Chief several times, and the answer was the same every time, but it's, to do a renovation for this kind of dough to last 10 years is crazy. If this renovation is gonna last us and serve this town for decades, that's a complete different conversation, because every single dollar counts.
Yeah,
So that's,
the
and
diff-
then I know there's no crystal ball on that, but that's, you know, for me, what I juggle with, you know, it's,
Yeah, that's a little easier, I think that's a little easier conundrum to resolve, is that because, yes, it'll last, but there's definitely gonna be a change. I'll guarantee you in 40 years from now, when I'm certainly not gonna be here, there'll be something different, and you will have locked yourself in to a site. That's the major decision that you're making now, and as you all said earlier, someone said earlier that you basic, the money is cheapest now, right? It was a lot cheaper to do this. I can give you projects that we started pre-COVID. It's sickening. Will the numbers come down? But the one thing keep in mind is whatever that proportionate difference is, it's the same. If the numbers came down or go up, it's not like all of a sudden, frankly, the costs are more controllable in the new construction than the renovations, because every time we take something apart, we find something that we didn't expect, right? It's inevitable. That's what contingency is for. That's why we build the numbers in. But inevitably, you know, we can control the cost better in a new construction than renovation. Again, it's about the investment in the town, and then how sure are you that this will last for whatever period of time you think you want it to last for.
I got a crazy question. Could that building ever go up?
Yes, it could.
It could.
Anything can be done, extremely difficult.
Mhm.
Extremely, I just had a client call me the other day about a building we did, and he's like, I wanna add a third floor, and I started, yeah, you can. You basically have to put an exoskeleton on it, you have to take the roof off, it's extremely complicated. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not,
Okay.
to answer your question is, I gotta answer, yes, you can do anything, we do it, we've done it, but given, that would not be advisable, let's just put it that way. Then you're talking elevators too,
Yeah.
most likely, and,
Yep.
you know, there's a whole, another layer of stuff.
Yeah, ADA compliant stuff.
Yeah. So you good to hang out for a little bit? We're about to unleash
Yeah.
Gloucester.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I live in Smithfield, it's okay. Not too far.
All right.
I love these meetings, it's 10 minutes away.
At this time, we'll open it up. Would you please come up, just state your name, what street you're on. If you hear a question already asked and you want to kind of add to it, you can, but obviously let's respect everybody's time. Oh.
Walter Steer, Putnam Pike. You just asked a question about the renovation going up. What about the new building? Could that be a two-story building?
Yes, simple answer is yes. And I'm being sarcastic.
No, but, you know, with the lay of that land on the east side, could that be a walkout? And you could have a walkout, you know, underneath and, stuff on top.
Yeah, I mean,
Things
Smithfield,
that could be in the cellar, which,
right.
you know, I suppose you don't want a lot of stuff down there, but, I would think, you know, that would lessen your footprint. And, I don't know, was that ever thought of?
This is still conceptual, at the, you know, at this level, we're still basically, generally, the cheapest way to build a building is flat, right? The single level flat building. The difference, and I don't disagree with you, is that if you can, and I'll go back to Smithfield, a lot of that stuff is underground, so the Sally Port, certainly the cell blocks are under the, adding an elevator and consolidating the plan is an option. It's worth looking at. We don't have topography of the site yet, we're literally.
Well, there is a pitch.
Yeah,
from
no,
west to
I've
east.
walked the site.
But it is wetland. You know, you got a 2-foot water
But-
table around.
But that's all that would be developed, and it's very prudent it's a good question, it's certainly worth looking at.
You know, if it wasn't, you know, price wasn't a factor, I think it makes sense. If you're gonna build something, build a new one. You know, I just can't see putting a lot of money into the old place, you know, but unfortunately, I don't believe your figures. You know, I think Foster was told the same stuff, and 2.5 or 3 times more than what they told you. So, I was talking to an architect the other day, and most projects are at least $1,000 a square foot. And, you know, you have some that you've shown us that they're more than that, so. If you're gonna do this project, I would figure on at least $1,000, and plus, you know, depending, that you come up with an estimate of what financing costs are gonna be.
No, I haven't.
No, well, I think we ought to look at that, because that's money we gotta pay back.
Mhm.
And, you know, rates may come down some, but you're still, you know, it's not a good time to borrow money. So that's another thing I worry about, the financing costs. You know, you can say this bill's gonna cost 10, 12 million, but the financing costs, it could be 20 million. Just something to think about.
Thank you. And you can go next.
Hello, I'm a homeowner on Adelaide Road, and my concerns are with the new construction,
Can I just have your first and last name?
Wesley Wyatt,
Thank you.
W-Y-A-T-T. My concerns are, is this new construction gonna affect the homeowners on Adelaide Road? With well water, cell towers for the police station, is it gonna interfere with our televisions and our cable stations? That's the only question I had. I agree with him, like, you know, why try to fix an old building when you can do a new one, you know? And, that's my concerns. The homeowners on Adelaide Road.
Okay.
And we purposely stay away from using that road at all. If you notice on the site plan, everything comes off of 44, so we're not intending to use.
But I mean, you're gonna have to put artesian wells in there.
Yep.
And you're gonna have to tap in. Is that gonna affect my water?
No.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yep, Carrie? And then we'll come over there, George.
Gary Trumbull, Pine Orchard Road. Comments. 1980, the Gloucester Police Department was located in the cellar of the Manton Library. As the town grew, the decision was made not to renovate the basement or add on to the library, and a new police station was built in 1990 at the present location. Now, 34 years later, history's going to repeat itself. The current facility, along with the land it is located on, has outlived its ability to support a modern police complex. The parcel on Adelaide Road is a perfect, centrally located area which will be able to support our police department now and many years into the future. I know money is a very important factor in this decision, but we should not lose sight of what we need in a facility. We should strive to get the best HVAC, metal roof, windows, and building envelope. Thought should go into evidence storage in an outbuilding, not using expensive square footage within the complex. Actual square footage prices have evolved from $450, $650 to $750. Should the building of this complex come to fruition, it will be at least 18 to 24 months before a shovel goes in the ground. We should think about $900 to $1,000 per square foot as realistic numbers. There should be a realistic contingency fund to cover any unforeseen problems. This fund should be in place so we don't cheapen the facility with value engineering to cover shortfalls. Remember, the components you cheapen today will follow you for the life of the facility, and you will pay to fix them. Get what you need now because it's a one-shot deal.
Thank you. George? And then
George Kane, Sawmill Road. I just wondered if we had a figure of what we could get for that property. And could it be zoned, must be zoned residential now because zone a business just in case you got a business buyer.
Right.
Because that would offset the new facility. Might be worth considerable money.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George. David?
David LaPlante, Absalon Hill Road. I was a police officer at the town of Gloucester, and I lived in the basement of the library. And just to give you a real brief history, when I became a cop, we didn't have computers, we had teletypes. One-way communication, we couldn't communicate with anybody. We had 2 little rooms in the basement, steep set of stairs to go down. We had a cell block that consisted of a plywood box with an old bank vault door on it. That was finally condemned. We couldn't hold prisoners anymore. We had to bring them over to the state police barracks. To bring a prisoner to the bathroom, we had to walk them through the town council chambers. That was always interesting when there was a meeting going on, especially when a drunk would throw up in the chamber while the meeting was going on. All true, that used to happen. When does somebody want to run? When you take them out to go to the bathroom, right? So it became a big liability. So the state eventually told us, you have to move out of there. So what Gloucester did, they had to put together a plan to get out of there, which they did. And there was a lot of back and forth about it. And the building was dumbed down a little bit, and I think that's one of the problems. I was the first group of police officers that moved over to the new building, which is the old building now. And I can tell you firsthand, when we started in there, the first computer we had was a Commodore 64. For anybody in here who's old enough to understand what that is. It's not even a computer today, right? Now the room is filled with it. And what the captain was explaining was how it gets cold in there in the summertime. It's not for the comfort of the dispatcher, it's for the usage of the computers. If they overheat, they'll stop operating. And because of the size of the room and the lack of ventilation, that's the problem. I was a captain when I retired, and I was in charge of evidence at the time. And that was 18 years ago I retired. And the evidence rooms there were unworkable at the time. A lot of people don't realize how police departments work. I understand. I see a lot of negativity on Facebook as far as this plan. And people need to learn why this plan is necessary. So just the evidence rooms alone. Certain guns can never be released or destroyed. Any gun used in a crime of violence has to be kept. Suicide's a crime of violence. We don't have many shootings in Gloucester. We have suicides. So over the years, these guns build up. You run out of room for transient evidence that'll come and go. Now, even though the rooms are that big, you have trouble finding your evidence because things are piled on top of one another. It becomes a dangerous situation, especially with the drugs. You start losing things. You'll lose them in plain sight. And these are the things that have to be fixed with either a new building or a revamped building. Whether you go with plan A, B, or come up with a C, I think you need to come up with something because I can attest to the fact that I lived through, when we moved into that building, we thought, oh my God, we got lost in the building. Now you don't get lost in the building. There was, I think, 10 or 11 of us at the time. The department has grown. The laws have grown too. The way you hold prisoners, the way you deal with the public. It's very spelled out as compared to when I was a cop, the way you interview people. You have to have the proper setup. If you don't, you're not in compliance. You open yourself up for a lawsuit. You know, you either spend it now or spend it later because when you get sued, it can cost a lot more than what that bill cost. But I just want people to understand, I don't have a horse in a race. I haven't been a cop for 18 years. Just retired from my second job. But for the future of law enforcement, and public safety in Gloucester, something has to be done, whether that's a new build or repair. The only question I would ask, and I didn't get it from here, at some point EMS is going to become, EMS is critical in this town now. A lot of people don't realize it, but the way EMS runs is not the way it runs with a full-time paid department. And you have a lot of times now where you don't have a rescue on. People may or may not realize that. But we don't always have a rescue on. I know because I sat on the board for Harmony for quite a few years. And it's just a fact of life. You can't force people to come to work for per diem. You can force them when they're full-time employees. So is there any contingency on a new build to add EMS to that building to make it a complex rather than just a police department?
It hasn't been discussed, but that's, again, one of the advantages of having a site. There's certainly plenty of room if you did want to add EMS to the plan.
And the reason I ask that is because I know there's been grants out there. If you build a complex that includes public safety, EMS and police, you very may well be able to get a good portion of the building paid. I know there's other departments that have done that. So that's something to look into. A police department by itself, you might be able to get a small grant, but if you're building a complex, a lot of times you get a much bigger grant. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Yep. Randy?
Randy Nato, Rainbow Road. What Dave was saying, I remember the police station over the library. I was in there a few times. And what the architect was saying, why don't they overbuild this building a little bit, extra space, so the next generation don't have to go through what we're going through. Even if the interior isn't finished, the structure's there. Look what evidence is now. Prepare for double that in 20, 30 years. And the interior just has to be finished, not new foundation.
Thank you. Who's next?
So, Jerry Mosca, emergency manager, I also live on Stillwater Drive. You have to go with the money you have on the table right now. However, I did want to remind you that we did put in, so we mentioned the infrastructure grants. We did put in with the state this year for a public safety infrastructure grant, up to $5 million. Those grants are supposed to be awarded by mid-March, so a couple weeks. We have a chance to get up to $5 million only because of the Emergency Operations Center, because it will be the only and largest emergency operations center in Northwest Rhode Island. The state likes that because it becomes a nexus for response in major disasters. That EOC would be able to handle having representatives from the state, Oroville, Foster, and be a nexus to getting response, instead of us being the end of the line for every response, which is the way it is now. And you can just see that with Rhode Island Energy. You know, Providence has got to come back online, Pawtucket's got to come back online, Warwick or whatever. They don't understand, we don't have electricity, we don't have water. We're always at the end of the line because we're out in the sticks or whatever, all right? This puts us in the forefront. So the way that grant is structured is, if you ask for a public safety building grant by itself, a fire department or a police department, you can get up to $1 million. If you can show that you have some kind of regional benefit, we get up to 5 million. Our argument is, we have an EOC plan. We also have $1 million from Congress that we're using to build that, which can also help the region, the northwest of Rhode Island. So we're hoping, because you never know what's gonna happen at the State House. They make their decisions as to who gets these grants. We're hoping that if we get the grant, it'll be on the higher end. Just want you to put that in the back of your mind. However, any decisions you make now have to be with what you have on the table. So, just wanted to put that out there. Oh, one other thing, so, you had mentioned, a couple people mentioned about the trailers. I know that was built in, but I don't think you're gonna need that if you build new, okay? So, you keep the old building running, police department's running the way it does right now, while you're building the new one. You don't have to rent trailers, you don't have to move anything. You will have maybe a month where you're gonna have to move the dispatch from the old building to the new building, where maybe you'll have to get a temporary trailer for about a month.
We have the mobile command post, we handle it.
So we don't need that.
I was just gonna say that mobile command post can run dispatch, right?
We've had instances where we would have to shut down, re-up the computers and do stuff, and we would go mobile in the park. We could do that.
And that mobile command center is being upgraded. I don't know if you recall, but we got a $45,000 grant from the state to upgrade it, to put a retractable tower on it and so forth. So hopefully we're supposed to have that done by the end of this month. However, as he said, you got a call from the company that's actually working on the mobile command center, and pots are back on it. So.
Right. Okay, thank you. Who's next? Buster.
George, John Steele Road. So I spent a couple hours with the chief yesterday looking at the plans. And I'm sorry I was late tonight, so I may have missed something, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, actually, I know where, can you get the prices of some of the other jobs that were coming up? He missed that. There we go.
So my question is, what seemed to me anyway, and correct me if I'm wrong, the renovations at the old station are gonna add about 9,500 square feet to a 5,500 square foot existing building, a total of 15,000 feet.
16.2, yep, total. That's a garage.
16,200.
That's
Yep.
with the garage.
That's with the garage.
That garage is 22, so you're looking at 14,500 with the addition, around 9,000, that's 5,000, about 14,000 change.
It's 4,800 plus 1,200.
And the proposed new one is, well, it was 12 something last week, but now it's 13. And why would the renovations have to be that big? So you're gonna be at 15, or 16,000 square feet in lieu of
That's
12.
with the garage.
No, that's with the garage, so
Take the garage, so you're at 14.
it's basically 13 versus 14, 13,000 square feet versus 14,000 square feet, all in. So brand new sport is at 13,000 square feet, the renovation in addition is 9,200 plus 4,800 or 14,000 square feet.
I'm just trying to compare apples to apples in my mind, that's what I wanna know,
Yeah.
where the prices are, and I don't wanna be comparing apples to oranges, where you have 2,000 extra square feet at $800 a square foot,
Right, it's sort of the reverse.
just to bring the prices closer together.
No, so programmatically, that's a good question, but programmatically, all of the spaces are the same size. So the efficiencies of the design space in the current renovation plan, and the new plan is just more efficient with this, the square.
There's a lot of corridors and hallways, there's probably 1,000 square feet of hallway we're paying for in the new one.
But this, the size of the spaces are virtually identical, so the program is the same. So we're not like magically losing 1,000 square feet or something like that.
And the pictures up there, the actual right picture is only blown up, it's not this, it's actually smaller than the box on the left.
This is smaller than the new building EOC is, smaller than the, addition. And my question to Mark, if I can jump in, Buster, sorry to interrupt, steal your thunder. Does a commercial building require bigger corridors now on the code, the 10-foot ceilings, or is it a savings in that? Because I've been in a lot of new buildings that have very, I know 80, disabilities. Does that require a larger corridor?
I mean, it's what's practical. These are basically 6-foot wide corridors, which is just a sensible size.
Yeah, I think I'm at 4 right now on the PD right now.
There's various sizes, but yeah.
Okay. And what about the ceilings? Is there any commercial code for that?
No more than
Okay.
that's 8 feet, that's
Okay.
it.
So those are all questions that we discussed the other day.
Yeah, we did, yeah, that's what, I stole that from you.
So the one other thing that I feel is part of the equation, I think George Kane mentioned it, is what are we gonna do with the old station if we go the route of the new one?
So
What is it gonna be zoned? Because now it's, what is it now, Walt? It's public safety, so it
Public
kinda
safety, so
overrides everything.
It's in a residential area, but it's, to your
So-
point,
So is it gonna be residential? So you're gonna sell it, someone's gonna have to remodel it, make it into a household? Or are we gonna change the zoning and to what? And that'll have a huge impact on the value of it, is what it's gonna be zoned, right? You're not gonna want a trucking company in there, but there's probably a lot of different businesses that would be low impact to the neighbors that could go in there. But
Put a daycare
but
in
it's
there.
not zoned for that.
Right. So I reached out to a couple of people at the State House and said, hey, it was just in kind of like just walking by and having a conversation and telling them that, we have a building, we possibly want to do an upgrade, And they said, is there any other agencies in your town that could use a new building that you could foresee in the future, that you don't want to put the money, eventually, or you can sell it? So, trying to figure out if there's a town department that needs a new building, but it seems like everybody's kind of in a good place. So the next ideal thing would probably be just to sell it, Put a daycare in there, something that needs lots of rooms, put it on the market.
So it just seems like that's gotta be part of the equation that you folks have to think about, as well as the rest of the town.
Agreed.
I know we've outgrown the police station. I don't live it every day, but I think it's a pretty bleak picture of the building that's being painted here in front of the public, and I don't think it's all that bad. It's maybe dramatized a little bit. We put a lot of money into that building the last 5 to 6 years. I do know we've outgrown it, and we need something, and I support that, but I think we all need to know the actual costs and difference between the two proposed projects, and as part of that equation is how you're gonna handle the zoning. If we build a new station and sell that one, what route is that gonna take? What's gonna be allowed there, and what can we fetch for a price on it?
Does that have a public water system?
It's a well.
Just a regular well?
Well,
Oh, I got a
septic
well,
system.
but mine's like listed as a
Well and septic.
public water system.
We put a new septic in about 4 years ago. A new roof went on about 8 or 9 years ago. And some HVAC.
Thank you.
Thank you, Buster. There's Who's next? Nobody. Okay. All right. I'd like to thank everybody, obviously, for coming in here and giving us their feedback on this. It's obviously not an easy question. It's a lot of money. We're talking about the future of Gloucester, well beyond, you know, my days. Anything, Walt, you want to add?
Not at this time. This is really for the information that you're receiving, we're receiving at the same time. So this is important for us to be able to get your feedback first of all, and then we're gonna have more information to be able to work with and make decisions on where we need to go, whatever that happens to be.
Speaking of that, timelines, like what, is there any like immediate timelines that we have to
Well,
kind of figure that out?
The COP grant, December 31st, 2024. So the way that would work, as I discussed this several times with our IT director, is whatever decision the council makes and the town supports, that money will stop buying equipment right away and storing it to go over there. We also could transfer the generator. I talked to Mark about that. That's $125,000 that Jerry got us on a grant 3 or 4 years ago. We just upgraded all our exterior security to the Vakata system, so that, and we're in sync with the schools with that, we would be able to transfer most of that over, that we've already done that, or add to it at the existing facility. The FEMA grant, we haven't been awarded that because we don't have a decision. They've come out already. Congressional delegation's been out twice. Senator Jack Reed a couple weeks ago. Seth Magaziner came out the summer, 100% supportive of any funding that he could give. You know, and I'm always asking for more. Hey, can you give us more? But so that won't come into play. But I think the clock. We've been not officially awarded and accepted that grant, Jerry. If I'm right on that.
Yeah, it's a 3-year grant. The clock really started in June. We have not been awarded, okay, they can't give us an award letter until they know which way we're gonna go,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the longer, and they call me every 2 or 3 weeks
Yeah.
and say, what's going on? I said, well, there's a council meeting coming up, we'll see what happens. So this, I know you're just getting all this, and we probably need more feedback, and possibly do some public outreach, but it's sooner than later,
Mm-hmm.
right? The other thing is, if you decide to do something other and not put in an EOC, for example, right? That $1 million goes away.
So is the 5.
No, the
No,
five
no,
stays.
can still-
The 5 stays.
Oh, okay.
There's option 1, 2, and 3. If the nuclear, the bad option is 3, we stay there, and then we start going through a building with no addition. That 500, 490, we're gonna apply. There's a car that comes with that too, that's part of it. It's communications.
But that up to 5 million,
Oh,
that's what I'm talking
The
about.
1 to 5, that's, so.
No EOC, no up to $5 million.
No, that's a whole separate. The EOC is $1 million, which has already been set aside, that's a congressional earmark. If we don't build the EOC, we don't get the money. The $1 to $5 million grant that we put in for is a separate infrastructure grant. This is from the state, that one's federal.
Yep.
This one's from the state, it comes from the state opera money. And it's the same, we have the same deadline, they have the same deadline as we do with our opera money, which is, what, we got a year and a half
Another
left
year
on
and a
there?
half, yep.
Yeah. So if they say, you got $5 million, we gotta spend that in a year and a half.
So that is disconnected from the EOC.
That's correct, that could
Okay.
be used on anything.
Yep, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody who wants to ask me a question?
All right.
I'd like to just thank everybody for coming out and hearing what we're all hearing tonight too. It's the feedback is valuable, and I hope, I think Captain Fay mentioned this earlier, but if anyone here wanted to see the current police station, I think that would, if you guys would be kind enough to accommodate, I don't know if anyone will take you up on that, but, it's helpful. It's certainly helpful, you know, to see what you're working with your own two eyes. So I just, if you guys are okay with that, I just kind of wanted to put that out there and let everybody know.
Can I add to that without getting up? Maureen McNamara from Cold Street. I'm part of the budget board, and we walked to the police station last year, and it was eye-opening. It was frightening, I must say. And I give them so much credit for working in that building every day, because it's not safe. The air is not safe.
What we're able to do in a small rural town, and go look at Gary's trucks, you'll be, it takes a village. Like, I've lived in some places, and that meeting means a lot here, because it takes all of us to come together and make things happen. So I 100% agree. Thank you for that comment. This is also going to be on the agenda for tomorrow to have more discussion on it. So if you go home and something rattles loose and you want to come up and talk about it tomorrow, we welcome all of you to get up here and talk about it tomorrow. So it's not an easy decision. It's gonna take all of us to make the right decision. So with that, can someone make the final motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be.